Yeah. Hi, Rajesh. Good morning.
Hi, Sree. Good morning.
All right. Thank you for waking up quite early. I know this is what, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock for you. For me, it's a good time, 9 o'clock. But thank you for waking up and being available for this.
It's my pleasure.
All right. So let me give you a bit of a prompt or a thought that I would like to chat with you. Right. So if you remember my genesis of knowing you in my life, or at the starting point of where I met you, we were building softwares, right? And we were pretty much building software like a very frugal, very old school, just get it done without good product practices, without good qualifying questions, without engineering practices. It worked, right? But it was very jugaad, right? It just worked, right? It was not with deep foundation. Is it solving the right problem? Is it the best way to solve it? Does it have the right design guidelines? Does it have the right product guidelines? But we did make it work, right? We turned around the company, but we were unable to scale. So to me, whenever I think about you, of how you came in my professional life first, and then of course the later part, we became good friends where we could bounce off any crazy ideas between each other, which deserves a separate chat itself, right? On what all we are dreaming today. But in today's part one conversation, I thought it'll be great to hear. Uh, I always believe everything has a history, right? So who you are today, like who we are today, for you to know that, you have to look back the last 10 years, right? So I was very intrigued to know that you bring in so much of knowledge and capability back in 2018 when you started with us. So now I'm even more curious, like what made who you are, today? What were your uh, principles, values? How did Rajesh become the Rajesh of today? Right. So if we can walk us through a bit of a memory lane, how it all started, where it started, what inspired you as a kid. Um, yeah, I also have an alive question from someone in my circle. Should they do masters? Should they do this program, that program? And a lot of people in my network said, no, 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 you got to be doing work and you got to be learning from the work that you're doing, right? And whenever I think about someone who constantly reflects, retrospects, um, your name comes across, right? So over to you. Give us a bit of your background, journey, what got you to where you are today.
Interesting, Sree. Um, I think the who I am today is probably a mosaic of a lot of experiences from the past, all layering one upon each other. I'm not sure if I can separate them out, but I can just quickly walk down the memory lane. Um, I guess if I start with my schooling, I did my schooling in a central board school, very small school. When I say small school, very interestingly, there were two adjacent schools, and ours was campus-wise bigger, and in terms of number of students, it was smaller compared to the adjacent one, which was campus-wide smaller, but it was like too many folks or too many students per class there. I think my dad decided to put me in this bigger campus one, saying, "Hey, this has better space to run around and stuff compared to the other one." Um, and uh, and in that school, I think uh, the memory I still remember is I think this was fifth standard when I joined. Um, there were two groups. There was a Jay Kumar group and there was a Kamalesh group. So Jay Kumar group was the studious group, the group that will study well and do well in exams. And the Kamalesh group is the typical mischief group, the last benchers we call them, right? They are very active and stuff, but not very studious. And the memory I remember is when I was asked, which group would you like to join? I said, why can't I start my own group? I don't want to join either group. So that's the memory I have of me probably starting to say, why should I conform to anything? you know. Uh, so and then in that school, obviously Jay Kumar was a very very studious person. He was number one. Then he left the school, I think about seventh standard, and then there was another kid called Nanda Kumar, and then Rajesh Kumar. So it felt like, if you have a surname or the second name, middle name called Kumar, you'll be a studious person, because I was number rank 3 and then rank 2, and then when Nanda Kumar left, I was rank 1. And I was also the at that time they used to have something called school people leader, SPL, where you get to stand in the podium and then do the rituals of daily prayer and stuff like that. So I've been very comfortable stepping onto stage and talking, looking at people from that age. And I liked drama. I used to act in the annual school plays, and I used to enjoy it. So if I wasn't probably a typical middle class Indian born at the time I was born, probably I would have been an actor or something, in my life. So it started there, I would say, in terms of having probably opinions, and I'm fairly strongly opinionated. And then I also felt, or rather, if you are leading someone, right, leading a prayer every day has a lot of pressure, and you also develop the skills and the knowledge and the awareness of what it does and the responsibility that comes with it. So I take my responsibilities fairly seriously, sometimes to the extent that people are fearful of my intensity of what I do. Then I did my 11th and 12th. I moved to a different school during my 11th and 12th. And what was interesting at that point was, suddenly I felt like a smaller fish in a bigger pond. Like I said, I was number one in my small school, but I moved to a very large school, 60 kids in a classroom, coming from various IC, SC, and CBSE and state board kind of stuff. And for 2 years, I was almost lost. No friends, had to rebuild all the friendship, or rather I didn't build. It was because only 2 years were there. And there was intense pressure on preparing for the 12th, which is the public exam in India that determines more or less what you do in your life. So it was the fairly moment where I was feeling lost. And then I joined engineering after that. And in engineering, again, it was a private college, probably a tier 2 college rather than a tier 1. And the 4 years in engineering gave me good space to rebuild some of the friendships and some of the skills that I had, otherwise. And I still remember, again, in the classroom, this was, I think, the first year English class, where the teacher said, or the prof said, you know what, I'm going to teach things differently for you guys, right? I don't want to be the professor who stands in the podium and lectures you and you guys just staring at me. I'm going to change things. And I put my hand up and I said, why do you think we will change? Because everybody else does the same thing. And then I'm like, why do you think we will change? Suddenly you deciding to do it differently. How do you think it will motivate us to change? And then he called me for the next 3 years in the college as prophet, because it didn't work. At least he felt it didn't work. He tried, and then he was like, oh, nobody is responding, nobody is preparing stuff and things like that. And I said, oh, you are prophet, you were able to predict that nothing will change. So that is the streak of me where I am while I'm part rebel, I probably have a dual personality where I can also be extremely conformant and very rule oriented. And that is something people find very hard. And that's I think one of the reasons why I'm able to hold two conflicting thoughts in my head very easily. Then completed my engineering, did pretty well, enjoyed my college, both from an academic perspective and non-academic perspective. Did a lot of going around cultural fest and winning a lot of prizes for various events and stuff like that. Did my finally a project at Baba Atomic Research Center, which is very prestigious one in India that does a lot of research in atomic energy and science. Then I joined Infosys, which again was a interesting story. I'll talk about it separately. But I did, get my first offer in Infosys off campus, and I joined them. And that was, I think, one of the career-defining moments, Sree, where uh, I was inculcated with a little bit of, I would say, the professional ethics and ways of working. Being fairly fearless in terms of expressing, one's thoughts, opinions, without. Sometimes I feel I do, speak without understanding the consequences of what I say. But I think I got it from Infosys because it's one of the at that point of time, I'm talking 1999, professionally ethical organization out of India, known for its ethics and professional conduct. They literally rewrote how corporate governance works in India at that time. So it was a great one in terms of my first 5-6 years. A lot of learnings. Technically, I wasn't a computer science grad. I got a comp science job, so picked up a lot of technology as well as more than technology. I think the passion, the integrity, all comes probably from that first 5 years of working with folks who were one intellectually very capable, very honest, people with high integrity, and very very focused on delivering the job. I still remember where we used to do night outs. I have had weeks where 3 or 4 days I had not slept. Just kept going on and on and on to deliver
Wow.
interesting stuff. Uh, and again, I don't know. Fortunately or unfortunately, I carry that streak of carrying work in my head for a long time. Very hardly I shut down uh, and carry work in my head a lot of time. Still thinking about product, thinking about whatever work is going on. Then wanted to be closer to business side, so it was tech was important, but then I realized that sometimes I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing in the tech side. I wanted to understand what kind of impact is created. So decided to take a break, went to Indian School of Business Hyderabad for my business degree. And then the next probably 4 years were a little, choppy because I wasn't sure what I really wanted. Um, and coming from a typical what was called at that time services background, it was very hard because I did have a very good salary at that time. Software was one of the high-paying jobs. So since I'd worked at Infosys for close to 7 years, I had a decent pay coming through my every month salary and stuff, and it wasn't easy to kind of switch gears into something else. I worked for a small startup in the intellectual property space, set up their processes and stuff like that. And then I wanted to start on my own. So I started a social media company called Brio Tribes. And it basically, it means active tribes. Brio means active. So it means active tribes. This was at the very beginning of the social media, like Facebook and stuff coming out. And people are wondering what to do with it. And we wanted to give a product to the companies to understand what customers and people are talking about their brand. Kind of didn't work out for various reasons. And that probably is one of the places where I learned the lesson. A lot of scars and lessons, and what not to focus, what to focus on, and things like that. Then joined another startup after that, where we built software and hardware. So I did a lot of hardware work at that point of time for building casino systems. Basically, if you remember if you go to any casino at all, you will have this machines where you can play around with, and then it will just spin, and then you'll get wins or it will take money. That was another lot of learnings there, where I used to, for example, I learned that when we shipped the machines by lorry, they said, hey, please take insurance, because each one cost like 10 lakhs for us to, build and ship. But then when I went through all the details of the insurance, the only time where they will make a full payment of the damage is spontaneously the vehicle has to burn, and it has to burn totally. Else there were so many exclusion clauses, and if you put it all together, in all the other cases they will not pay, at least fully. So it was very interesting to see how the if else logic works and all that stuff. Learned a lot again there, hardware, little bit more details in terms of software and things. And then at that time we had an idea of again building a infrastructure, or rather platform as a service, or a PaaS, because at that time Amazon had come up with infrastructure as a service where you can spin up machines like on the cloud like anything, and we wanted to give a layer on top of it to help people manage. So again, another 1 year of startup experience, lot more learnings. Didn't work out. Joined another well managed, well growing startup called Recruiterbox, and I joined at the time when they had just probably touched the product market fit, probably slightly earlier. So it was again a great journey of about 4 or 5 years of hitting the product market fit and then scaling up. Tons of learnings, probably more relevant in terms of how to do stuff to scale and work with people and so on. So broadly, I would say those were the journeys, Sree, that kind of shaped me up in terms of who or what I am today. A lot of startup experiences, a lot of stuff, learnings in terms of what did not or wouldn't work and what works as well. I'll pause here. I went through my memory journey, but thanks for kind of rekindling the thoughts.
Yeah, no, beautiful. I mean, I always love to know the person behind, right? We only get to know the name and title. We never get to know the person behind. So to me, it's very reassuring to know that we all learn in layers. We all have layers. We all have different way of absorbing our childhood, different jobs into what we are today, right? So that's reassuring in a way. I want to go back to your the childhood story that you were mentioning, not childhood, school story about the profit thing. Can you expand a bit more? What was going in your mind? What was your thought? Was that your gut? Where were you coming from for the teacher, or for you to get that title, or even have thought shared with the teacher?
This was in the engineering, and I think at that point of time, I had learned that learning comes from interest rather than somebody pushing it, and I was kind of, I want to learn stuff that I want to learn, not because it's there in the syllabus or you have to get high marks and stuff like that. And the reason why I reacted the way I reacted was I was in a classroom, 40 not kids, but not adults as well, right? We're in the first year of engineering, just stepping into adulthood, but not kids also, right? You're starting to think of your own and on your own and so on. So we went ahead. So we were in the classroom, and the prof, when he said, "I'm going to change the way we are teaching. We teach here in the college." I was like, okay, first of all, teach and learn is a joint process. At that time, that was what was in my mind. It's a joint process, right? If the learner is not interested in learning, then there is no teaching happening. Yes, there is some information being conveyed, but teaching and learning, as the terms mean, is not probably even happening. So this person unilaterally declaring that I'm going to change it, and the way it is going to happen is I'll be not in the podium, and we will collaboratively learn. While I thought theoretically was a great one, I felt we were not ready for that change. And when I say we were not ready, I was probably judging the rest 39 folks in the classroom, saying we're not ready. We have come from a tradition of close to 15 years of teachers being on the pedestal and telling us stuff. And here is the guy who is trying to say, hey, I'm going to change everything, and then I'm going to change it tomorrow. So it was more like a challenging that person to say, hey, it's not going to happen in one day, right? So that's all I'm able to recollect about the background of why or what made me challenge that. Because I felt this change is not going to happen in a day. And you're just declaring from your end without knowing our intent and our participation that you're going to change it is what was very interesting.
Very interesting. So what, I mean, maybe we might get into a bit of a rabbit hole and we'll come back to it. What the teacher or the gentleman could have done differently to win you at that time or to win other students at that time? And that's part one question. Part two, I'm talking on behalf of India. I'm also an Indian. I think at times we get into this trap of, I know the right answer, but sometimes you don't collaboratively think about how do we solve this now, right? So I see two problems, right? One is the other person not sharing the intent, right? If the teacher, I'm imagining, right, if you would have said, hey, can we think about it differently and can we ideate? Maybe could there be a more involvement, right? So just curious to hear your views on, on this topic.
Sure, Sree. Again, this reflection is going to be based on where I am today, right? It's hard. It's going to be impossible to kind of unwind all the other learnings and go back all that 20 years back.
Of course.
So I believe when change happens or change is warranted, I believe in a little bit of I struggle with the term collaborative, right? I normally struggle with it because I don't know how collaboration can happen unless the folks come together, have their disagreements sorted out. And the way to sort out disagreements, the way at least I know of, is you come together, you propose your ideas and thoughts, go back and forth till you iron out the differences. And that requires all the parties involved in the change to come together with an open mind. When I say open mind, doesn't mean that you don't have your opinions or anything. You come with the thought that you have opinions, others have opinions, but you are open enough to listen to the other person, right? So if that exchange doesn't happen, for me, collaboration and change feels very, very superficial. Because it might happen because, like in that case, the professor has all relationships have power equations, right? If we acknowledge or not, you have title there. The professor obviously has more power than the students. And if they declare unilaterally, this is what I'm going to do, I felt there wasn't exchange of challenges and questions and thoughts for it to organically arrive at that point. So I normally like the debates and questions, and I keep saying a lot of my conversation that, hey, I'm questioning not because I'm questioning you. I'm just opening up the question space, the space to open up the questions. So coming back to your question about the change, I would have thought it might have worked if the professor was able to create and hold a space to even question the way that learning and teaching was happening, right? And organically, it would have evolved for something, maybe not what he had in mind, or not what the students had in mind, but what together, they could come up with, that would have worked, is what I think about it. Does it clarify? And I feel a lot of this collaboration saying, hey, let's collaborate. I'm like, I don't know what it means, when you say the word, because we haven't had the conversational stuff of what are you trying to do? What are my opinions or thoughts? And how do you combine it all together where both of us now really are joined together, aligned to move forward?
Sorry, I was talking to you with all the mute on. Yeah, but that's beautiful. If you fast forward, I mean, with I think the Infosys certainly deserves a completely separate chat altogether. But if you distill towards the journey of now, Rajesh has got a job, Rajesh has worked many places, and that's when your equal experts journey starts, right? As a consultant, as a high-performing individual who combines all this wisdom from the college, school, learning from others, and then now I think that's when I met you at Enchanting Travels, right? When we were struggling. Um, and it was almost like a lightning force for me, right? Because there were certain things that I knew and I was doing, and you came as a like. Since I'm a student of astrology, I sometimes say I'm like a Narasimha with the fierce. This is how we got to get things done, right? And we received it with welcome hands. I mean, that success and that journey is a separate conversation. But yeah, so if you could tell us what was going in your mind during that consulting journey, how did you see all this learning culminating back then in 2017, 18 to become like a well-rounded consultant, right? And related to that, you're also a deep product thinker, right? And I resonate with you when you say I carry work all the time, right? Um, yeah. What was going on your side during this time? Like what was happening at that time? Where were you in your discovery when you had started with us?
Just to clarify one thing, Sree, before I go into that space, is uh, this is something I struggle to even express and clarify to people. The best I could do is just borrow, the phrase, which is I have very strong opinions, but very loosely held. Um, Basically, I have opinion pretty much on anything and everything, especially around technology and product, right? But it is not with an arrogance that I know the answer or this is the only way to do it, right? I have those opinions as a starting point, ready to listen to the context and ready to listen to the other parties or party and change as needed. And that is something I always struggle, because the strength of my opinion probably conveys it as, I know the answer or this is the only way to do the right stuff. And probably that is why I found Equal Experts so refreshing, because that's one of the places where I found pretty much everybody has an opinion for sure, but people are ready to come to that space to have the dialogue. So I like this word called dialogue. I also read and like JK Krishnamurti a lot, and he uses the term dialogue. And the very interesting part of his dialogues, if you I mean, there is enough available online, is he'll be the only person who will speak. So we normally expect a dialogue to be two people at least. If there are two people or more, everybody getting equal voice time. And Krishnamurti will keep saying, we are having a dialogue, and he will be the only guy speaking. And I didn't understand it for a while as to what is this guy even saying. He keeps saying, I'm having a dialogue, but you are just lecturing, right? But then I realized the style of his dialogues are nothing but holding a mirror, right? He negates himself in that conversation. And that's a very interesting side topic we can have. But coming back, right, I found Equal Experts to be a very nice place to I found like-minded individuals who are also strongly opinionated, but they were not opinionated where the opinions were tied to their personality or individual identity. It could be challenged and you can have conversations. And I thought and I felt, I still believe that makes you a better consultant, because as a consultant, when you step in anywhere, people are looking up to you to give them answers. And you can't say, I don't have an answer, right? But at the same time, you can't have answers because answers are very contextual. So it's a very delicate balance between projecting that confidence. When I say projecting, not like an artificial one, but that's who you are, and probably that is what worked well with when we came to you, Sree. Is I had strong opinions about how to build a very good product, but I was very, very open to change my mind based on the context, which I don't know if I was able to convey or did I practice it, but that was the space I was coming up with. For example, I remember the day you said we have a backlog Excel with 500 items. I said, let's not even look at it. There's no point in looking at 500 items. We'll just waste our time, right? Let's start building the first MVP. Tell me the first biggest problem you have, and let's start building. I'll run a discovery for the problem. And if you're not clear about your problem, let's run a discovery to identify. Let's have a dialogue. Let's converse. Let's talk, right? So I think I found a good balance in equal experts and our relationship, when we started with EP, in terms of being authentic to myself, which was have strong opinions, because you need a starting point for conversation, but be very, very, very open. Again, when I say open, is more about paying attention to the context and change and adapt as needed, rather than sticking to the answer.
Yeah. Just for the listeners and those who are wondering what are we talking about, just for context, I sometimes believe internet has become like God, right? It records everything eternally, and this conversation is going to stay beyond our lifetime. Um, just to bring it to life, what we are talking is, of course, we were able to, in my early part of my consulting days with Enchanting Travels with Parik and Alex, we were able to stand up a technology team, but I was unable to scale. And today, Enchanting Travels is looking at a triple-digit top-line number growth, thanks to the layers and foundation tech has helped them, right? So, for example, it's continue to remain in its core value of high touch and supporting the customer, but the high tech part um, was never non-existent or existed in a very poor shape, right? And thanks to you and rest of Equal Experts who kind of came as almost like a saving grace, right, to help us really take out of where we were. Not only that, the Travelopia India team, which is Enchanting Travels India technology team or the group functions team that I am responsible for at Travelopia today is May 23rd, 2026. That was built from the layers and the learnings that we had between the foundations that you taught us, Rajesh. So I think a big thanks for all what you have done and you have taught.
Thanks, Sree. And I think more than what I had thought, I think what we evolved together is how I look at it, right? Yes, I had my opinions, my ideas and thoughts, but I think we shaped it, again, thanks to the space you and the team created. I think we evolved it, which is very unique for the context of Enchanting and Travelopia. I don't think it is replicable anywhere else, because it is context of the business, the leaders, the people. It's a combination of a whole lot of stuff.
Absolutely. That led it to do together Catalyst and the other projects, but all those for another conversation, right? But so a little bit a deep dive into where do you get your deep sense of product? I know you have your business sense, you have an engineering background. I keep telling this to people. One thing that I look forward when I have Rajesh in the call is that what are the three things Rajesh has summarized? So to me, I joke to others that Rajesh is my ChatGPT even before ChatGPT existed, right? You could consume huge amount of data or context and then say, okay, these are the three things I understood. Is that what you understood, right? So you are the GPT, human form of GPT that I knew before ChatGPT, right? So where did that three things come from? What's the genesis?
I don't know, honestly, but I can reflect on it. And probably this is one conversation, Sree, where we have talked for close to 20-25 minutes, and I have not said the three things or the two things.
I know,
which is very interesting. and pretty much anybody who has ever worked with me, will know that normally Rajesh will start with three things and he'll say two things and he'll forget the third thing, or he will not have a third thing. Coming back, I think my product sense probably started with Infosys a little bit, because I was more curious about why are we doing what we are doing. And I have had enough of dead ends and late nights fixing issues that arise from not thinking well enough. So that's where it's probably started, but more in probably a negative space of, oh my God, let's not make mistakes and make our life harder. In a positive sense, I think it more or less started with my first company. When I started thinking about building my own product, I had this misgiving that, which is again another big topic of conversation, is, product companies are better than services companies. I want to only build a product company, where I literally shut it down because it wasn't going the product way and it was going the services way. And at that time in 2008, I had a order book of 70 lakhs, and I said, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do services. I want to do product. So at that time, I started independently, thinking about how do you build product and stuff like that. Not that I knew good things, but I started reading a lot. At that point of time, I don't know how many of you people even know, there was this guy called Joel Spolsky. Joel on software was something that I stumbled upon around 2006, where he was a product manager of Excel way back in Microsoft. And then he had, started his own company of a project management and a bug tracking software. And he had written a lot of articles about thinking about product and how do you think about, building stuff that users really use and so on. And I still remember Joel's test, which was a 12-pointer about how good your organization is in terms of building product or software in general. So a lot of reading, a lot of and at that time the ecosystem of startup was building up. So there were a lot of meets. I'd gone to, met very interesting people, giving some interesting ways and thoughts to think about. And I think my product overall sense got solidified in Recruiter Box. I need to thank the founders of Recruiter Box. For one, they were very deep thinkers, both IITians and very to the ground folks. And I remember the conversation where probably 3 months into my job, I called them both and I said, guys, this is not working. And they were like, what happened? What is not working? And I said, you two guys, being the founders and who have, shepherded the product all this long, and they had been doing the product for close to 4 or 5 years at least, all this long, you always go, think deep, talk to each other, and then you come back to me, and then you tell me what to do. And then when I ask you questions, you already have answers, which means I'm not getting the space to own it up. I'm not getting the space to think through it, which basically means this is your stuff. You have me as a guy who is just documenting stuff, and this is not going to work because I didn't join to just document your thoughts, right? And they understood that and then said, okay, first of all, the founders used to talk to each other a lot. And one of the founder who was very, very good at product started talking to me rather than the co-founder. Because I thought that was why they hired me, right? They wanted to scale the organization and they not being the pivotal of every step. And Girish, who was, I would say, the product brain in that co-founder duo, was a very deep thinker in general, and kind of sparring with him and thinking through, and even Ragu, who is the other co-founder, I think the benchmark was fairly high in terms of thinking through and being able to explain it well and execute was pretty good. And then since we were a startup, we didn't have a lot of resources to burn and do mistakes and stuff. So there was always this balance of how do we move fast, but at the same time not do mistakes and waste resources that were scarce. Probably I think I honed my product thinking there, and then continue to do it with great people at Equal Experts, and I had colleagues in Recruiter Box who were again very passionate, who were also leveling up in terms of product thinking. So I had engineers who are still continue to be my good friends, who will challenge me on product thinking itself. Why are we trying to do this? And I'll be like, I'm telling you, I'm the product guy. You should do it. No, I will not agree. Tell us why, and then we will appropriately build and stuff like that. So I think that was probably the fertile ground where it kind of honed.
Beautiful. I recently wrote an article on leadership and courage. It was more a reflection rather than my own authentic thoughts. But one thing that came out was there is something called abhaya in Sanskrit, right? Which is abhaya means fear, right? Abhaya means a state where there is no fear. Right? So it's not, the loose translation would be fearlessness. But the actual, so fearlessness is a state when there is, I acknowledge there is fear and I'm acknowledging that the fear has gone away. Right? Abhaya is actually not fearlessness in that sense. It's the absence of fear. Right? The fear doesn't exist. Right? Why am I saying this? You might have got a clue already, right? I deeply sense your true nature, right? The abhaya is always present. It's hardly I can unsee that when I talk to you, interact with you, when I see you working, right? You operate from a space of that abhaya or fearlessness in a loose sense. Um, Anything that pops up when you hear what I'm saying about abhaya? Like, do you resonate with this?
Yeah, I'm able to relate to you, Sree, in the sense, again, I use more of negation of JK style, which is I know what fear means and what it does. And especially in the professional life, I know what all it could do. And that awareness probably leads me to the state of abhaya. Um, Not because I don't have fears, I have seen what it can do. Kind of reminds me of one instance where again, back to recruiter box. The day I felt very uncomfortable was I was thinking about a feature. I think it was about introducing roles in the software, and the thought came, "What will Ragu think about this idea?" And I caught myself saying, "Why am I thinking that? I should be thinking about my users, my product, and what is the right thing to do." And that day I felt like I was afraid of how I'll be judged by one of the founders, and that made it go away in a way. I'm like, I don't care what he thinks about it. He might think I'm stupid, but he's going to tell me why I'm stupid, and I learned something there. So I'm able to relate to exactly what you're saying. I feel a lot of us don't realize what fear can do, especially in a professional setup. You're afraid of your job, you're afraid of your boss, you're afraid of being wrong. All that distorts bringing yourself to the stuff, and I keep seeing that again and again in me. It's not like I'm like you said, I'm not fearless at all, but I keep seeing fear in me, and the moment I see the fear, I see it going away. Probably the state of abhaya than fearlessness.
Yeah, beautiful. Um, yeah, I think we can keep chatting, but this is part one. So just to bring it to closure, um, what are the three things you would say if you look back your life?
One, I've been very, very fortunate, I would say. Um, Very, very fortunate, because at any point of time, I have done mistakes. When I say mistakes, more in terms of didn't work the way I wanted it to work. I've always found somebody to hold the space and get me back onto my foot. Never felt like, oh, I'm completely doomed kind of stuff. And universe has always helped me in one way or the other. Though I say it is universe, it's actually the living people who have held me, right? So very, very fortunate that way. And second, I would probably say is I feel fortunate to have fallen in love with technology in a way. When I say technology, in the broadest sense, not just computer science, because I see how much of goodness that has been created in this world for humanity and in general life with this technology and knowledge. Third is, recently I've started realizing the limits of this way of thinking as well, which is the knowledge and technology, and and I sense probably there is something beyond that as well. For me, that is just the start of the journey, wondering what is that, and is there anything like that. uh, so yeah, those are the three things.
Beautiful, Rajesh. What should we chat next? Should we chat? I would love to get a sneak peek of your Infosys journey. Right, it's one of the India's best offering to the world. Right, in terms of quality, in terms of people, in terms of
Yeah.
market cap. I have personally worked with Murthy sir's Catamaran Ventures. I did not work with him closely, but I worked with his investment team at Catamaran Ventures. Um, Always admired the way he, even when he was quite old, when he show up at 6 or 7, work late, like the work, the integrity, I could completely see it. So maybe the conversation I would love to do is, on one side, there are companies like Infosys, which is the role model to the world, right? Then you have a bunch of casual, I don't know, hackers come together to do something cool, right? Two different cultures, two different styles of doing it. Yeah, maybe we should pick that up as the next topic. But for today, thank you so much, Rajesh, for getting up and sharing. And hope it rekindled a little bit of your childhood, your previous work and life so far. But pleasure to know you in my life. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sree. It was pleasure chatting, and yes, we should talk about Infosys. It's a very interesting set of conversations, and yeah,
Right.
I'm a early morning guy, so I do love getting up early. Thanks for giving me this opportunity, and I'm going to be pretty having pleasant memories all through the day. Thanks to you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.